One of the principles of USPSA matches is that practical competition is freestyle, which means that competitors create their own stage plans and choose what shooting positions to use while they engage targets in whatever order they desire. This makes it significantly different from an IDPA match, where cover must be used and the order of engagement is dictated by tactical priority. The main thing to bear in mind regarding IDPA is that the targets are considered threats. As such, any defender doesn't want to expose themselves to threats and thus will use cover if available. In a similar fashion, when engaging targets, the highest threat target will be engaged first, with other targets engaged in descending order of threat. This means that when shooting an IDPA stage, the competitor needs to pay careful attention to the cover available and to the target placement. So let's take this as an example of an IDPA stage. If the shooter starts here, they will begin by moving either to the left or to the right so that they can engage the targets on one of the sides. In this case, our competitor is going to move left up to the cover line. In USPSA, this would be called a fault line, but in IDPA, it denotes a position of cover. The competitor, when shooting, needs to stay on the side of the line that will keep themselves behind cover when engaging targets. The order of target engagement uses a technique called slicing the pie. Tactical priority as a concept means 1. Engaging the highest threat target first, and 2. Not exposing yourself to unengaged threats if possible. Because of that, the competitor will first engage the outermost target. After that, they'll slice the pie to engage the next target, then the next. Each time they turn to engage the next target, they expose themselves slightly more from behind cover. But since the outer targets have already been engaged, and therefore hopefully have been neutralized, they're no longer a threat. If instead the shooter started by leaning out and engaging the innermost target, it would mean that they would be exposed to the other targets, which in IDPA would result in a procedural penalty for tactical priority. In IDPA, if there is cover available, the order of target engagement is set by tactical priority, which means slicing the pie. After engaging the targets on the left side, our shooter decides to move to the center port, which simulates shooting from a window. As you can see, there is a cover line denoting a position of cover here, which means again that the shooter will need to slice the pie. As before, the shooter will engage the outermost target, which means the target that the shooter is first exposed to from their position of cover, which in this case is the target on the right, and after that, slice the pie to the inside. Now, what if the shooter had first gone to the right, engaged those targets, and then gone to the window? Well, obviously first the shooter would have gone to the right and engaged those targets in tactical priority based on the position of cover, starting from the outside moving in. After moving to the window, since the shooter was on the right side of the fault line, the outermost target, the one you are first exposed to, will be the left target. This is the opposite of what happened when the shooter approached the position of cover from the other side. Again, the target engagement order, tactical priority, depends on which target you are first exposed to as you move around cover. After that, the shooter would then slice the pie and engage the target on the right. So what happens if there is no cover? If you are in the open, then tactical priority, which again is still based on which target is the greatest threat to you, tells you that the target you need to engage first is the one closest to you. When in the open, when there is no position of cover, tactical priority is near to far. So, in this case, the shooter would first engage the closest target, then the next closest, and so on. If targets are an equal distance away from the shooter, then they have an equal priority. For this situation, the shooter could choose either one of those targets to shoot second, and that would be fine. IDPA rules say that if the targets are within 2 yards of each other in terms of distance from the shooter, then they are of equal priority. So, what if the targets look close, but you aren't sure? Then just ask the safety officer, who will tell you the priority levels, and also in most cases, it will also be written into the stage briefing. So what happens if you don't stay behind cover? Say, for example, that from the start position, you moved to the right, stepped over the cover line, and engaged the targets. In that case, you'd get a cover penalty. Now, if you accidentally stepped over the line but stepped back before firing a shot, then there would be no penalty. But if you fire a shot while touching the ground past the cover line, it is a penalty. What about if after that you move to the window but accidentally step to the far side to shoot? Technically speaking, once you're there, you're shooting from a position of cover because this matches the shooting situation as if you'd come from the left side. Unfortunately, to get there, what you've done is moved across an opening that exposed you to unengaged targets. In other words, you were in full view of threat targets, and you'll earn a penalty for that. You cannot move across any opening that allows you to be exposed to unengaged targets. Now, if you stopped on the right side of the line and engaged the targets correctly in technical priority, then you could step across the cover line and continue to the rest of the stage. But again, you could only do that after you've engaged all of the targets there from that position of cover. So, to sum up, tactical priority means that if there is a position of cover, target engagement means slicing the pie. If there isn't cover and you're in the open, engage the targets from near to far. Make sure you don't take any shots while touching the ground past the cover line, and don't cross any opening that exposes you to unengaged targets. If that all seems confusing, just bear in mind that targets are threats, so deal with the biggest threat first and go from there. And don't do anything to expose yourself to threats that you haven't shot yet.